Please go live.
Oh, maybe
No.
because it was you set the live date and time.
Oh, yeah, that's probably what it is. It did that last time too. I don't know. I need to look that up. I need to look up how to like override essentially. Because it just like when I go into YouTube Studio, it just makes it seem like I have to create a new live, which is annoying.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, we are? Cool.
Yeah, this looks like we're live. Let me see. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
turn
can
my
see it
volume.
on my end. Let me check my. This is the stuff I still need to flesh out so that it's smoother. It's just like we're live.
And we're live. ZenForce TCG and Pocket Pals Hub.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, it's live. Cool.
Yeah, what's that?
Um, let's give it like a minute or two, but and I may just post to my story. No, that is the one thing you guys, Dallas boys, roll deep
We're
with the
very like,
support. No, but just like I mean, you guys. Not no hate to anyone up here in Seattle, but you guys just like very supportive. I feel like we're
yeah,
very tight knit and just like roll deep for anyone. Like, hey, we're all going here. Like, watch Mushu's newest video. Watch Pocket Pal's newest video. Like, it's very.
yeah,
I like that a lot
there,
because I don't know, probably
yeah.
similar audiences. You know.
There's just a lot of warmth between us vendors. Who does Nostalgianomics calls it a cabal? We have our own cabal Facebook group, and it's generated a lot of love and electricity amongst us vendor friends. And I think that's been big for us because I don't want to dog on the other vendor scenes in other cities, but I will say DFW, the community we've built amongst us vendors, and honestly, even like new vendors, old vendors, LGSs all together. Truly is. There's a lot of love, and it feels nice because it could go the other way and be heavy competition, and you know, you screwed me over, I screwed you over, we can't talk anymore, blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's.
Lots of emotions in this hobby because it involves money.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's. I feel like that's only natural for just kind of the nature of it, which sucks, but it's fun and also, yeah, can be stressful. The same
Yeah,
breath, I guess. So, but yeah, let's start. So let's get a little introduction on you. Do you
sure.
pronounce it Amar?
Amar.
Amar.
That's
Okay, I
right.
have a lot of
Yeah.
friends that are named Omar and then
Uh-huh.
Aman. So I
Yeah.
have Amar.
Amar. Hey guys. My name is Amar. I am one of the members of Pocket Pals Hub. If you don't know, Pocket Pals Hub is actually comprised of three people. That's where we get our name from. PAL stands for P as in Simon, A for Amar, L for Leonard. Uh,
I did not know that.
and the story goes, I got back in to Pokemon relatively recently in 2023, actually. So it's been a sprint. And it was TikTok. I saw a rip and shipper, and I was like, oh, Pokemon is active again. This is interesting. The cards seem cool. So I went to a Target, bought some packs. I think it was Silver Tempest at the time. I don't know, something around there. And I got like a trainer, and I thought it was lame. So I kept doing it a little bit, and soon enough started to visit the LGSs around, and then realized I was spending money and buying stuff over market and tried to get a bit smarter about it. So back then, you were able to go to Facebook Marketplace and check out garage sales, which doesn't exist anymore because everyone is attuned to what their cards are worth and all that. But back then, I think it was the tail end in 2023, you were able to. And so there was a city called Princeton, Texas, which, if you're not familiar with DFW, that's like way north DFW. I call it the boonies, but a lot of people live there now. I was like, okay, let me hit up this garage sale. I bet it's an old fart who has some vintage Watsy stuff, and it ended up being a man named Simon Lee. It's Simon with a P, Psy, and he
That's
was doing a
interesting
garage sale.
spelling.
Do ahead.
I said that's interesting spelling.
Yeah. Psy is in like psychic. That's his whole thing. And he had some cards. We became friends. We went to trade nights. Simon knew Leonard. We all kind of started hanging out all together. Leonard goes by Crazy Leo as well. And lo and behold, we decided, hey, let's start vending together. And then it turned into, oh, let's like do a little vendor pod, and that turned into Pocket Pals, PAL. And I'm the annoying face of Pocket Pals.
Hmm. Well, that's a cool origin story, I guess.
Yeah,
So you guys have known each other for like a year and a half, 2 years ish.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Around 2 years.
Nice. Well, that is cool because I had no idea where the name came from, but I also just thought like maybe Pocket Pals, like something along the lines of like Pokemon, Pocket Monster.
Right, right.
So,
So, of course, there's the acronym, and we thought, at the time, Pal World was getting a lot of action.
mm,
So we were like, how do we make this kind of different? We like the pal concept. We're pals, whatever. Pretty simple. Pocket Pocket Monsters felt appropriate. And we added the hub at the end because our intention at the very beginning was to be a hub of vendors or people or friends and build a community. So that's what we called it.
oh, so I guess the live stream idea you mentioned was already sort of the in the cards, so to speak, moving forward or in the future
Totally.
at some point. Cool.
Yeah, definitely the ethos of Pocket Pals. And, I mentioned the Facebook group. We are all mods, admins of that Facebook group, and we care a lot about the community. Of course, like the customer base, but also us vendors as a community.
Nice. All right, well, let's jump right into it, which I think obviously still talked about this with Dylan, talking about it with you.
Mhm.
We'll probably talk about it with Mushu until
Mhm.
May 28th, which is Destin Rivals. How do you feel about it? Are you excited? Are you not excited? What's the vibe for you personally, I guess?
Yeah, Destin Rivals is an interesting set because I think it is, I mean, as objectively as possible, a very good set, a very deep set. It's got a lot of chase cards, something for everyone. Of course, people are up in arms about the Mewtwo. I think it's pretty good, and my reasoning behind it is maybe different from a lot of people's. I really care about how an individual card looks inside a case when I'm vending, and the colors, like that red and gray combo, I think is unique. There are not a lot of Pokemon cards that have that. I think it will stand out, and I think it will at least perform better than the Surging Sparks Pikachu. Um, we're obviously in a much hotter market than when Surging Sparks released, which was the beginning of this. Um, and I think Destin Rivals will probably perform much better than that, much better than Journey. But similar to Journey, it may fall a couple weeks after release. Right now we're at 250 a booster box, maybe a little bit more, 270.
Yeah.
The ETBs are 120. Um, I expect that to go up a little bit on release. And then depending on availability, what distro does, how much stock the LGSs have, how they go to big box retailers, it could be a situation where we're overloaded with product and it not doesn't crash, but it's not as high as it is right now. Or it's crazy, just like the market has been all year, and this is the apex of it. And the Mewtwo's like $800 to $1,000 raw.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think my only thing is that, and I mentioned this again with Dylan, but if the market has a bit of a drop after Destined, um, I think everything else has to drop like accordingly. So, people freaking out about Journey Together dropping or whatever, it's like it's still 200 210 a box. It's not like it's cheap. Like that's still $50 above MSRP. That's still double what people were getting Scarlet Violet boxes for a year ago. And so if people are going to be like, I'll buy Destiny at 200, all right, well then that means Journey is going to have to be like 150 or 160. So I'm sort of
Yeah.
in the same boat though, where it's like it probably will drop a little bit, but I think once the reality sort of sets in that like Pokemon will probably print the set a little bit more, I'm guessing, just due to the popularity, but they're still catching up with Prismatic. They're still pumping out 151, it seems. I mean, maybe they're sort of stopping that soon, but it seems like something where I have not seen these mass scale reprints for any booster box set so far. I'm not sure where people are getting that thought process. I think it's again
Mhm.
stems from Sword and Shield, but I think they've sort of learned how to balance it out. It seems like they reprint bundles and blisters and ETBs and stuff, and then feed those to lots of Walmarts and things like that. And then LGSs are getting like smaller, I don't know, 520 case resupplies, but it's not like anything crazy where it's crashing the market, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, rewind to Temporal Forces, and those chase cards were, max 80, 90, $100. You look at Journey Together, and like Clefairy's still well over that.
I have
Zoro
three of
is
them.
around
I need to sell them. I have
there. Yeah,
three of the
it's
Lily's
probably
Clefairies. I thought
yeah.
it was
And
going to
so,
drop more, to be honest. So I think I'm lucking out right now. But
I mean, the reality is, you know, zeitgeist means a lot culturally outside of Pokemon, and it struck again. And aside from Pokemon Go and the COVID boom, this is the next boom, and people are coming in, and maybe it's because of 151 surging sparks, the money aspect, which I think is huge now. I mean, even you see kids coming in, 7 year olds, they are looking at investment opportunities, and they're really caring about how much their cards and slabs, some of them, will appreciate. That's a new one, I think, which has been marinating and festering over time, and now it's definitely become ubiquitous in all areas of the hobby. Everybody wants to collect uh, for investment purposes as opposed to just collecting purposes, and I think that's informing the value of the cards today, and how stuff is not tanking.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned kids at these shows. They are way more in tune with the same thing that people talk about where, like, kids have phones younger now and they just seem more like, I don't know, tuned in or alert. Same thing with this card stuff. I'll see like 5, 6, 7 year olds who are like, have a massive binder, or like the craziest is when I see a parent with their kids and I'm like, did you guys open all of this? And they're like, yeah. And they'll have like all these SIRs and stuff. It's crazy. I had one kid at
Yeah.
the last show who started with an energy card or a paperclip or something. By the end of the show, he traded me the Rainbow Pikachu VMAX from Vivid Voltage. So I was like, I don't know how he got to that point, but that was the most successful trade up I've seen. I don't know. They are very well versed in what's going on. It will be crazy when they are our age, just
Hmm.
how they handle the market. But
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, right? There are these kids who are in it, and a lot of people talk about the life of Pokemon, and whether Pokemon TCG in particular, the collecting space, slabs, sealed investments, will have longevity. Um, Pokemon is one of the strongest IPs in the world. It's not like Beanie Babies, where they didn't have shows, and maybe they had a show and it tanked. I don't know. But I think it's not like something like that. Or my assumption is Labubu is going to do the same thing, where it's just. But Pokemon is robust, has a lot of different verticals. It's cultural, and it has impacted multiple generations. And even if it had the story of Sonic the Hedgehog, which still is super popular today in the movies and even the video games, Pokemon will survive for decades to come.
I mean, yeah, it is. It seems like every few years they figure out some portion of their IP to readjust or implement that just blow. I mean, Pokemon Go was the first time where I had seen people. You'd see the sports jock and you'd see the nerd both playing Pokemon Go, walking along the beach trying to find the hubs or whatever, and I was just like, it was crazy here where I live. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
and now you had 151, which was like the most beautiful culmination of trading card and nostalgia packaged together. I think that was I'm not gonna say that was the catalyst. I think between Twilight and Surging, something happened where the market turned. But I think things like 151 were already. It was almost like building up to this. I don't know, explosion of interest, which caught me by surprise. But honestly, I was not. I was prepared, I guess, in terms of like I had a lot of Scarlet Violet and decent amount of Sword and Shield, but I was ready for that. So I'm still currently kind of unloading the rest of my XY and Sun and Moon. I don't really.
Mm.
This is my last XY box, I think. Steam Siege.
Wow.
There are sales, confirmed sales, $700, and then Sun and Moon base, which everyone shits on. But
Sun and Moon is just going.
Umbreon GX and Espeon
Yeah.
GX and Lily.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And hey, the rainbows are going to have their boom. That Lugia GX, I know it's not a part of base, but it will definitely have a boom. People have been talking about it for over a year now. I promise rainbows will have their come up story, even if people hate them now.
100% rainbow. It feels like, yeah, everything that is deemed unpopular, trash, whatever, eventually has its day because no one has it when that day comes. Same thing
Mm-hmm.
with even just like even what we're seeing with like Obsidian Flames now. I have
Sure.
none of it, and I've been getting the booster boxes 180, 190, but still it's like I could have gotten them for 80, $90, $600 a case. And now it's not even because of FOMO, it's just like I need diversification through all the sets a little bit. So I've managed to get a few boxes, but I mean that was the worst set for ever. Same thing with ones like Darkness Ablaze. I just
Yeah.
if Steam Siege can reach $700 a box, any set can reach $700 a box. That is what makes me so confident in Scarlet Violet and Sword and Shield, is that
Sure.
I wasn't around during XY, to be honest, and definitely not Sun and Moon either. Maybe like the
Mm-hmm.
tail end of Sun and Moon when they still had product, but I technically joined back in 2021. There were still a lot of hidden fates, but I don't think that many people liked it at the time. Like I don't think megas were super well received at the time. And so now everyone likes them because they're coming out with them again and people just go back and find the things they like. But to me, it feels like Sword and Shield was the first era in a long time, or at least since I've been back in the hobby, where the interest was already there from the start. Like I know Vivid, Sword and Shield base, Rebel class,
Sure.
Vivid, and
First half.
Darkness were weak, but and Battle Styles probably pretty weak. But I mean, from there on, it was like a glory run that Pokemon had, honestly. And so, and it's during the pandemic, which was definitely the biggest boom we've had. I mean, it seems like now people are saying this one's bigger, but either way, there's going to be some nostalgia attached to, I mean, Evolving Skies, you have it in the background. That is going to
Because it's my
be,
only sealed. I had to have something up.
but I'm saying that's going to be the next team up
Yeah,
or
for sure.
whatever, in my opinion. It's
For sure.
not, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. It's, I mean, that
Yeah.
Umbreon, it seems like the evolutions in Umbreon are more popular than Charizard almost, or
Yeah.
maybe they are, but
But at the same time, you mentioned Obsidian, and I think the reason why that set is healthy, people like us, investors, PokeTubers, vendors, LGSs, we look at things like card value and hit rate, and Obsidian Flames did not seem zesty because it was very easy to pull the Charizard. There weren't that many chase cards. As a vendor, you look at kids and they want to pull that Charizard. They want the Nine Tails. They want those cards in the set. And I think that's really interesting that happened with with Scarlet and Violet in particular, the first half. We had all these people saying, it's not as good as Sword and Shield, it's gonna tank. But the fans of Pokemon, the kid collectors, the casual collectors, were really hype on things like Paldea Evolve, which we all agree is a good set now, but also Obsidian Flames.
yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know. There was a weird thing about the crowns too that went along with that Charizard, I think. I don't know. Was that the first set that we saw crowns? No.
Maybe,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
No, they were on the full art still with like the Arcanine and Gyarados. So I guess we already saw Terra types, but I feel like the Charizard was the first one where people are like, "What did they do to Charizard? They messed him up so bad." And
Yeah.
to me personally, I think the Paldean Fates one right? That SIR,
Yep.
that's one of the
Mhm.
coolest cards in the era, in my opinion. And he's got the crown, So I don't know. It's all again market noise or whatever. I feel like where people are like, this is going to be printed in the ground. It's going to be around
Mhm.
forever. This is terrible set. Whatever. None of us have it now, and we're all paying for it. We're paying double what we could have paid. So I
Yeah.
just I I don't know. Yeah, I think it comes back to what you said. It was just like if you believe in the brand, you believe in the IP. Um, I would put your money where your mouth is. Otherwise, you can just watch and learn the next time, or you don't have to participate. There's no reason to. I just think there's like overly negative people on a lot of this stuff. The Mewtwo, for example, it's not the Mewtwo we wanted.
Sure.
It's like the expectations were so insane going into that, and there are still amazing, gorgeous cards in that set. You just have to get over it. There's gonna be another banger set. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to tell them. It's an impossible standard to meet. Pokemon's doing their best. They are very calculated in the decisions they make. I don't think people give them enough credit for that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Pikachu Gold Rainbow Crown is still like 350. So
Yeah. All day.
all right. So on that topic, I guess we talked about kids and things like that. What is one piece of advice if someone was getting into the hobby right now? Destined Rivals is the first set they're going to experience, or maybe they came in 151 or surging or something and they can't find any product. What is one piece of advice as a whole, when things maybe die down or they're able to get product just from that point moving forward? Or maybe something that when you started that helped out during the pandemic boom or following
Sure.
that helped you.
I mean, the easy answer is like, don't get caught up in FOMO and don't overpay for things. That's obvious, I think. Um, the thing for me that's been really, really important, and it's helped me with forecasting and making really risky plays and them paying off. Um, do a lot of research, pay a lot of attention. I know it takes time, and um, you have to watch YouTubers like yourself to figure out what the market is doing. You have to pay attention to TCG Player. You have to see what's available in Facebook groups, and when you're at shows, how much people want certain cards or how much people don't, and market fluctuation. My biggest piece of advice is take those take those early days to humble yourself, do some research, and try to learn as much as you can. Because I started in 2023. Scarlet and Violet basically hadn't started. I think we were at Obsidian Flames around there. Now there are even more sets to pay attention to, and we're about to have another block, and
Right.
it's a lot to absorb. And if you don't do it, I'm not saying you can't succeed. There are plenty of successful vendors who really don't know anything about the sets and the blocks, and why megas are valuable again because they made an announcement. They don't even know what Poke Beach is. But for me, that's what's helped is real knowledge, genuine knowledge of what's going on.
I think that's good advice. I think also people just have to like at some point you're gonna have to jump off the diving board, and it's not necessarily saying buy um, in a FOMO mentality, but it's more like buy a couple singles that you enjoy or illustration rare, or buy a sealed box or an ETB or something. Get your hand in the pot a little bit just to at least see what sells, what doesn't. To your point, I feel like vending for me, again, I don't do it as often as some of you boys do, but when I've done it, there's like a particular type of card that I'm usually looking for. It's the ones that I know people have repeatedly come and asked for. It's the ones that I believe in personally, or it's the ones that just have the most sales volume and the most consistent price data to where I'm like, all right, even if this fluctuates a little bit, I'm gonna get close to like what it should be. Sometimes that's why I kind of stay away from vintage collections. Mostly, this is just me personally, because if
Sure.
someone came up to me last show with a ton of hollow vintage unlimited cards that were kind of in the LP moderately played condition, I was like, "Do you have a TCG list that I could look at?" He was like, "No, I had it. I don't have it anymore." And I was like, "I can't like." It's almost not worth my time to go through this to try to figure out the conditions, because with vintage especially, the difference between LP and MP sometimes can be $10, $20, and the difference
Yeah.
between near mint is even more. So I guess my point is there. I figured out that that's, unless they're ready with a list and I'm very well versed in it, I kind of stay away from it just because I don't know it's bigger dollar amounts. But
I mean, I had that logic with, there's content of me not liking vintage back in early days of Pocket Pals. Um, I will say this past month, there is a genuine vintage boom,
yeah,
starting from unlimited WotC piece of crap cards all the way up to the grails. You can have vintage in your case. You can have a freaking HP Ninetales, and it will sell now, which
yep,
I would have never seen the day. My prediction back then, which I'm happy to admit is totally wrong now, was kids are getting younger and younger. Generations are further removed from vintage cards. They're not going to have this relationship to them. Tell you what, we content creators like us, people in the space, we're promoting these vintage cards. Now you have 5-year-olds saying, "Oh, it's a gold star. Oh my gosh, that's a shining Mewtwo." Like, I would have never seen the day. And now with us really being inside of a vintage boom, um, those cards are going to have a beautiful life ahead, and they're just as liquid, if not more liquid, right now than ultra modern.
yeah. I am not going to argue with that. I would just say it find out what works for you and stick to it. And yeah, there's even vintage cards that I'll take in. Like I was super opposed to it at first, and now I take in a lot of pretty much any condition legendary collection reverse hollows. Those things
Sure.
sell like hotcakes, and it's still probably the best, or if not one of the best. All those EX era reverses are beautiful, but one of the best reverse hollows I've ever seen. So I mean, there's some people who just exclusively buy those. So yeah, I think there's room for all eras, but kind of goes as far as your bankroll can. That's kind of the thing I ran into is like, do you want to buy a $200 moderately played Charizard, or do you want, I don't know, 10 $20 SIRs or something like that? It's a lot harder. Like it's a risk either way, but the Charizard is probably slightly more stable. It's just, I don't know. It's a hard, unsolvable equation. You just learn from experience and don't rush into anything. Just kind of soak into it and you'll figure out where you fit in. You'll kind of nestle your way to that perfect show inventory. I feel like for me, it's kind of that sweet spot of like, for slabs, it's usually like $100 to $400, $500. Every once in a while, I'll have one that's over 1,000 or whatever, which does help attract eyes to it. So sometimes it's worth having those higher value cards just to like get people in there. They might not necessarily buy it, but if you have a Mario, Luigi, Pikachu, people are gonna gravitate towards it, and then they might see the Charizard that they want or something like that. But
Totally.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think having it's like case advertisement,
Yeah,
having some bangers in your case or the newest SIR, even though you're going to lose $10 on it, it's going to help because people are going to walk by and see it and then stop.
yeah. Okay, I guess continuing on the topic of vendors, um, I was curious how you decide what to bring to shows and how you sort of got to that spot where you're comfortable with not only the dollar amount of inventory you bring, but sort of the diversification of sealed singles slabs. Do you bring sealed as well?
So we're going to start doing sealed in the fall. It's a lot of bulky inventory to manage. And I don't have an emotional connection to sealed, which for me as a vendor, it's incredibly important to only vend what I actually emotionally care about. Um, However, I have started to really like open up to sealed and enjoy it a bit more. So I think by the fall we will start carrying. Um, it's been a process. You have to stay nimble and respond to the market. Back in the day, last year, you could have had a ton of alt arts and it would have been all slabs and it would have moved very easily. Now a lot of people will tell you at the last couple collecticons, yo, slabs aren't moving. Singles are moving a lot easier. Um, so it's kind of a complicated answer because it changes. And recently, I actually made some calculated risks and liquidated all of my singles. Took that money, bought every single PSA 10 tag team alt art, all 31, sold those in 2 weeks, and
Wow.
had a bunch of high end inventory. And it was great. I made money, but I was sitting at a show with just high end. And bless their hearts, there are people who can kill it with high end and net crazy numbers. For me, it wasn't working how I wanted. And recently, about, I don't know, a week ago, I got back into singles. I re-upped, and now case of singles, case of slabs. Um, Taste really matters for me. So, I care about stuff that's liquid. I also care about stuff that's cute, and I care about stuff that looks good. How your inventory is also organized is really, really important. You can't just like have a disheveled case and expect people to come up and people care about presentation and how you order things and yeah, I mean, I long story short, it is hard and it changes every day. Um, but definitely don't carry like, if you're doing sealed, don't bring a ton of sword and shield base, ETBs. You got to look at stuff that is liquid and pay attention to the market.
I think that is very good advice. It does change with the market. I have noticed being diversified across the board has been the most successful. I'm someone who, I think I've preached this before, but maybe not on stream, but I am someone who likes more transactions and more volume than I do higher end, fewer transactions, less volume, waiting for that one big collector to come. Because what if they're not there? I mean, that's to your point. You might, or what if you're a content creator and you have like 5 deals done in a day? Maybe they're the biggest deals in the world, but I don't know. It depends on your goals, but also I'm someone who I have noticed the demographic at these shows is like 60-70% mom and dad with their kid or teenager trying to come up, whatever. And then you have 30-40-50% of people our age or more experienced people. All the experienced people are the ones vending usually. And then you have more of these high end collectors, which I would say is 5-10% of them actually walking around with PSA 10, Pop 50, Charizard, Stormfront, whatever it is. That's probably not the
Mid-era
actual
EX,
yeah, just like
low pop.
crazy stuff where you're like, okay, dude, like I get it. I can't have those grails, but anyways.
They're the Labubu Bros.
Yeah. I like Labubu, but I have not purchased any. I just think it's too much of a I liked them when I saw them at first, but then you see them everywhere, and then I'm like, okay, maybe not for me. But I do like something you mentioned though, which is the organization of
Sure.
of the display cases, and I'll piggyback off of that as well, which is not only the organization of your cases. I personally just price them high to low,
Yeah,
starting with the
more or less.
highest on the bottom for me, just because people's eyes, I've noticed, like they start at the front of the table. That's just I'm trying different things as well, like starting the highest in the middle of the case as opposed to the edges, because all this stuff. Anyways, another thing I want to mention for people doing vending is you need to be very attentive to you need to treat it like a business if you want
Mm.
to be successful, and you need to be attentive to the people coming up to your booth and treat them as customers or clients or people treat them with respect. I've seen tons of vendors, not all just sports cards vendors, but a lot of Pokemon vendors too, who are just like sitting on their phone, distracted. And I'm like, dude, this is why you're not making any sales, because you're on your phone, not paying attention. Like,
Sure.
there are some people who are like, is there anything you're looking for in particular? Or like, hey, I noticed you have a Psyduck shirt on. Do you like Psyducks? Like any sort of edge you can get to convert a sale, I feel like should be utilized or at least like recognized. You maybe don't have to like oversell, but I
Yeah.
just have noticed there's a lot. I'm like, why do you pay $200 for the table if you're just gonna go there and sit around and like not try to make sales, um, or at least not enjoy it? It seems like, but I don't.
It's a really valid point, and I don't want to dog on other vendors because some vendors sit on their butts all day and completely crush it.
Yeah,
Just depends on who you are.
it's true.
But I do agree with you. I am on my feet the entire time. I'll maybe sit for 10 minutes for the whole 8 hours. I will eat when I vend. I don't care. But I definitely I'm on my feet, and it's sales at the end of the day, right? And even content is just an extension of your sales. It's like a marketing effort to attract more business,
Right.
and people expect to engage with you. Not only are people coming to buy Pokemon cards, but nowadays they're coming to see content creators and have an experience. And if you're just sitting there and not providing an experience, or even saying simple things like how's your day, and I know it can sound like small talk and routine and that we don't really mean it, and sometimes we don't, but making sure that the people feel seen and you're making them feel comfortable so that they may offer is really important. Asking them if they have cards for sale, slabs for sale, if you see somebody holding a slab case, those things go a long way. And one of the early decisions of Pocket Battles Hub as well is signage. We have like our tablecloth is yellow. It's very loud branding. We have the full Pocket Pals banner in the back, and that attracts business.
Yeah.
And so I think all those things definitely help generate sales. And it may seem minuscule, but it does go a long way. And you can see it with the greats, right? Like, Eric Pack Battle. He's got crazy charisma in person, on camera, and he is selling so much because people are coming to him and they want to experience what it means to buy from him. Same thing with Jar Chomp and the others.
Yeah, Jar Chomp has exploded. I mean, a couple months ago, I mean, he still had an amazing following, but it's like night and day difference now. He's just dialed in. A lot of these people are just they're doing it full time now. I mean, they took it that serious and they're reaping the rewards. But yeah, it's definitely a balancing game because I, like you, am probably standing for 7 or 8 hours. I'll kneel down to take a bite of the sandwich or something like that. But I'm very much trying to be attentive and sort of, yeah, it's not even sometimes even about just like overselling, but like you're trying to break down that awkward barrier of the conversation as well. Because if you put yourself in their shoes, in a kid's shoes, there's so many of the
Mm.
kids are very shy and timid, and the parent is like trying to encourage them, and you just kind of have to kneel down and get
Yep.
inside their head and try to tease it out of them in a way that's not like predatory, I guess, for like taking their money or their cards or anything. And I don't think enough people. There's a lot of people that do it. There's a lot of great people that do. I just think there's equally as many people who are like very stingy or difficult to deal with. And I'm like, okay, they're just gonna go to the next table. But hey, they can choose how they want to do business.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of
Man, the
touched
chat's
on.
on fire.
Yeah, we can take it. I see there's a question about is it good to have binders? I
Ooh.
personally okay, just back up a little bit. My personal experience with my table, you have 6 feet. If you get one table, it is a 6 foot table. That is very limited real estate. Like Amar said, you have your banner sometimes or whatnot to try to help advertise it, but you have a very small amount of real estate. Some people bring the shelves in the back for sealed or whatnot, but with the table you have in front of you, I typically like to do one case for seal or one case for slabs, one case for singles, and then a
Mhm.
binder and sort of a dollar-ish bin. Because again, I like to be diverse in that regard. My rule of thumb right now, where I'm at with inventory, I've been offloading a lot of it just because I won't have a show till July, but I typically have $40 and up singles in the case. Slabs is just kind of like anything I can fit in there that's not overflow or not liquid. And then the binder is like those $40 and under. It started out as a $25 and under binder, went to $30 and under. Now it's a $40 and under. But the binder is by far the most frequented, transacted mechanism for sales in my experience. I don't know if it's the fact that they can flip through it themselves, take things out very easily, but it is like it's amazing how well things in the binder move. That's why I do take a decent amount of, I wouldn't call them bulk, but like I take a lot of trainer full arts, I take a lot of like lower end IRs, any pretty much any sort of full art EX type of card, because there's just so many people who are either finishing sets just like the shiny cardboard, like a specific
Yeah.
Pokemon. Like it's so much easier. And again, people who have done this know, a lot of the trades are usually in your favor slightly. It snowballs in a way that is so much easier in my experience, than a lot of the higher end stuff. But I want to hear your take on it. I have found that the binders are just the most, it's always on fire, it feels like. But
Sure. It will be a dissenting take, but that's okay. If I have two tables and Leonard's with me, we might have binders, we might have bulk. I used to have binders, and man, I was just talking up all the customers and how beautiful they are. But I will say, when you do have binders, you get a grouping of people who occupy half of your table
yeah,
and spend
that's
time
tough.
flipping through your binders and then checking conditions on $7 cards. And it definitely does detract from potential sales of higher value cards. Um, I love kids. I love working with kids. I have content that features kids. I really, really do. But when you have a lot of kids coming to your table, it will cause others to walk away. And I like a mix of really ultra high end to $40 singles. For me, that's my threshold. And binders, unless I'm vending with two tables right now, are out of the question. It's a space management thing, and a little bit of a customer preference, and not customer preference in terms of who I
Not
want to be
demographic.
buying from me,
Yeah.
but it's more like at the show with a limited number of hours, I need to have certain people coming in.
I think that's very valid. And yeah, I probably should have mentioned that is one of the biggest cons, is not only people crowding the binder, but the binder moves around so much. It'll move on top of the table, in front of
Yeah,
the slabs people want to look at. And a lot of times you are trying to cram in a lot of stuff into those binders. And so you'll get the 4x4 or the 4x3 binder. It ends up getting bigger and bigger, takes up more real estate. It is ineffective in that regard. So I would agree with you there. Definitely, it's like awkwardly never fits right on the table for me with the two cases. It'll be hanging off a little bit, bleeding over to the next table a little bit.
yeah.
So yeah, with one table it can be very tough. Um, but yeah, so okay. On topic of vending, I wanted to ask, same thing we did with someone just getting into the market. Someone's gonna vend their first card show. Let's say they have one table, they don't have any sealed, they just have one case or two cases, one for slabs, one for singles. What would you stock up on if their budget
Sure.
is like $1,000, $2,000? I don't know.
If you have a budget,
Or give
don't
give
do a
a low end take and a higher end take.
no. What I'm saying is, if you're on a budget, don't do a Collecticon. Don't spend $300 for a table.
Yep.
Local shows are incredible. We have TX card shows, just as much business as a Collecticon. I love Collecticon, but we have great local shows as well, and they're a lot cheaper, and you can do wonderful business at those shows. So especially if you're just starting out, don't think you need to take on those big shows and those big opportunities, because what that means is you're paying $350. You're paying for the parking on top of that. If it's not a local show, you're either driving and spending money on gas or paying for flights and hotel, which is egregious and very
Yep.
expensive. Please limit that. That's number one. If you have $2,000, I would suggest selling singles primarily. That's for the market today. And sell stuff that is an affordable price range, but is very, very liquid. These are people, you have no marketing at this time because you're brand new. People don't know who you are. So make sure your inventory speaks for itself. Um, so my recommendation would be like $20 to $100 singles, maybe some of the top chases, so like a top row of chases.
Right.
If you want some of your slabs to go in the case, that's fine. And a tip is if you have PC items that are incredible, you don't want to sell them, you can put them in the case and write not for sale. Again, case marketing. Um, but definitely also have some cash on you. Because one of the beauties of vending is not only selling your cards, but being able to buy at a percentage and then flipping those.
Yeah, and definitely try to fill the up to the in my personal opinion, unless some of the high end dealers I've noticed they like to space out their cards a little bit more to give it more like breathing room. But yeah, you definitely want to maximize the space in terms of like you're saying, maybe you don't have enough slabs or singles to fill out the entire case, but you have some PC, your Mewtwo PC collection or something like that. You can write not for sale on that and help it, fill out the rest of that case. I think a lot of the shows now you can just rent the cases, right? That's been a thing for a
Mhm.
while. I just bought two from Zion. I ended up buying one from Weston actually too, because he was like, I have too many cases. I'm getting rid of one of these for 50 bucks or yeah, 50 bucks or something. I was like, yes, please. But that is very solid advice. I think if I were to give a tip to someone, it would be either go with somebody or if you have a friend that vends already, try to shadow them. That's what I did.
Yeah,
With
good idea.
Yeah, Weston and Eric Rock Mountain TCG, they actually were the ones who reached out to me. They're like, we're coming up near Seattle. Do you ever vend this card show? I was like, I've never vended anything in my life. They were like, you should come up, can meet each other, do that. And I was very nervous at first. Like I was like, this is, it feels like a lot of pressure, but as soon as you get there, it sort of breaks down that awkward wall. And I really was just observing and listening. You could also do this if you just go attend the shows as an attendee. You don't necessarily have to be vending, but I was just listening to how they would be talking to people transacting, how they would be managing the money and like bringing in new slabs if other slabs sold out. Again, that's maybe not for the beginner to have that sort of overflow inventory, but just being observant and learning as much as you can, I think is a very like you're not in a rush to sell. You're not going to try to make 5 grand, 10 grand on your first time doing it. So definitely take it slow, but ask questions and just be involved, be passionate about it. You'll do fine. Um, I guess I'm curious about this. We'll wrap up soon, but I'm curious about the last point you mentioned to me. I don't know exactly where you wanted to take that, so if you want
Oh,
to,
geez.
I don't, or do we want to end on that, or I guess let's see if there's any other questions in the chat first.
Sure. Sure.
Let's see. Pocket Pals is
Shout,
my
shouted.
hero.
Great. Thanks, Nosa.
Mewtwo. Oh yeah, junk
Shrouded
drawer.
Fable. I like this one. Shrouded Fable will have its day. That's another great example of an Obsidian Flames. Uh, Pay attention to what fans are saying, and in particular, fan art on cards. Because the Dusclops line, that is one of the most liquid trios you will ever have in your
That
case.
artist is sick, dude. I found his Instagram. It's super cool.
Yeah.
That is a good piece of advice. Also, or you could do the opposite, which is if you're looking at YouTube comments or whatever, do the exact opposite of what people are telling you to do or not buy because they're usually wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any other questions. There's a lot of comments. Again, I think on future live streams we'll have to have you back. I would like
Sure.
to implement a way to pin the chat. If it ends up being StreamYard, so be it. I will
Cool.
figure it out. But Binder, I hardly know her. We have to stay very vigilant with the binders, though. I think he means in terms of theft, probably. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have recently. I don't post vendor POV content. I technically have some recorded that I could do, but it's just not my thing personally. I don't want to edit through all that. But part of the reason why I got the Osmo Pocket 3 is for also a security measure, just to deter theft. I mean, even at front row here, they would say on the intercom, like, vendors, we have sticky fingers in the audience. And then in my ears kind of perk up where I'm like, oh, Got to be. I'm not super concerned about the binder necessarily because it's usually not super high end stuff. But there have been, I mean, one of the most recent like TikToks I saw was a kid that goes to the shows that I vend at locally. Um,
Yeah.
got banned from the show, but it's just like it could be anyone. You don't know what people's intentions are. Just yeah, stay vigilant or go with another person. Just have those sort of layered security measures if you can. Um, but yeah, I think. Oh, actually, before we jump into the last comment from you, I would like to ask you because I wrote this down. I watched again. I don't watch very much vendor POV content. It's not
Sure.
that I don't think it's cool. It's that I just personally, maybe it's because I do it on the
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
It's just not my. I would rather watch conversational thing. It is conversational technically, but it's more like shaking the hands. I do like your
Yeah.
belly bolt coin flip thing. Thought that was
Thank you.
unique. Um, but I was curious because that I watched your most recent one, and I thought it was so cool at the start when you introduced the Crystal Lugia and the
Sure.
Shining YouTube. It was like I felt like I was playing like Smash Bros or something, where it was like boss incoming. It was like a really
Yeah.
cool intro. So
Thank you.
um, I definitely would like to poke you on the side
Yeah.
about how you do that because that was really cool.
I make all my content. I do it all. It takes a lot of time. I have a very deep creative background. I don't have a video editing background. Actually, doing this was my start. Um, but I I care about the creative and I want to make it exciting. And I'm glad you said something that feels really nice. The way that I see those cards, it's like when you pull a Greninja out of Twilight Masquerade. It's like a bang effect. You get really excited, and I wanted to generate that effect through visuals because a Crystal Lugia is insane, and if you're just like talking about a Crystal Lugia, you don't really feel the emotions of seeing it in person. So I definitely wanted to find a way to convey that, and I feel like I've hit a shtick that works. So
Yeah, I
definitely
really
see more of this.
really liked it. I mean it was
Thank you.
insane when you see it flying across the screen too, but I really liked it and I do think especially for those bigger cards, again, lots of other vendor POVs out there. They're great content creators, but some of them will introduce a card like that in a very nonchalant way, or maybe they transact with them so often they just say, "Hey, here's a Crystal Lugia." It pops up on the screen, which can be cool, whatever. But I just thought that little extra touch was very, very nice.
Thank you.
So, okay, let's get into your last comment, which was
Okay.
content controversies. I want to
Okay.
know what exactly you meant by that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I'm doing this live. I mean, I have a couple of controversial TikToks, and I don't necessarily want to clear the air because I don't care. Some of the comments are ridiculous, but I find it really interesting how the energy around vendors, especially in the scalper era, most recently, has generated a ton of negativity against us vendors. They call us scalpers. They call us names, whatever. And most recently, I had a piece of content where I flipped an Umbreon Master Ball same day,
Oh
and
yeah, I saw that one.
yeah,
It was
and I
on
got
the
a lot of.
release day, right?
It was like release weekend,
Okay.
and you know, it's not like I don't create content to cause some stir, right? I want to get the views, but I also thought I was being quite informative. I was explaining that it was risky for me, which everyone thought it wasn't risky, which is insane. It's like $100 and something card now.
Yeah, it
Um,
was like $480
yeah,
or something.
yeah, and I paid top dollar out of the entire room. This is at Dallas Card Show. Um, and then I found a buyer for it. And yeah, I included the piece of now I want to buy it.
Right.
Because guess what? I found a sale and I made everyone happy. I made some money. Um, People think maybe I took advantage of the situation. But again, uh, I called a shot. There could have been that customer who wanted the Embryon and told me he did, could have never come back. It happens 10 times at a show. that they say they want something, they come back, they don't come back, whatever,
Right.
you lose out on a sale. And there were tons of scores of comments of people saying, "You're such a scammer. This is so icky. I don't like this." And, you know, not that I want to like say or respond to that because it's who cares. But I will say it's been really interesting to navigate people who don't go to these shows and tend to be on their keyboards or using their thumbs saying the wildest things, and it can create a bad rap around us vendors. And I'm not saying we need to fight back because we don't. We're fine. But it's a funny one to go through.
Yeah, I think part of it probably is that people misinterpret the fact that you like maybe talk about a deal off like separate from that person. I don't know. I've had the same experience before, but it was, I guess I didn't upload it, but it was positive in the moment where some guy had a Goldengo SIR binder, literally only from Prismatic and Terrestrial Goldengo SIR. Someone else came up to me later that day with a demigod pack that they had pulled with the Goldengo SIR. I said, I already have a buyer for the Goldengo. If I could just buy all three, picked it up, sold the Goldengo to the other guy. It wasn't like almost you have to think about it too, or the viewer. Hopefully, I hope they can think about that in that scenario for you. You're sort of the only middleman connection for that seller and that buyer to meet because they're not going to walk up to each other in passing and say, "Hey, do you have an Umbreon Master Ball?" People aren't
Yeah.
talking to each other in that way. They're going to the vendor and talking to them that way. You make a little bit of
Well, and
money.
some
Think
people
of it as a consignment fee.
sure. And some people said, "Oh, you could have just introduced them." It's like, how? Like, am I going to walk out of my booth and go find them? And I tagged both individuals and I talked to both of them, and they were like, "I'm happy with what I did. We all won." Even the person who bought the Umbreon at a crazy high market price, he's happy.
Yeah.
He's an Umbreon collector. And guess what? Over time, he might be fine. He may have graded it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think people
So,
just take anything out of context and try to find to spin it. I don't know. It's tough, but I don't think that is I don't think anything you did was wrong. I think that's very normal and pretty much all vendors do that. Maybe people just
exactly.
don't realize that's how it works, but
Yeah.
it seems normal to me. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Do you
Cool.
have any questions for me? Anything you want to shout
Um,
out? I
I
tagged
definitely want to shout. Yeah. Well, no, I want to shout out you. I watched your stuff before we even chatted. I've been
have not
watching your
uploaded in a
content.
while, but thank
That's
you.
okay. You're. It's really, really great to see content creators like yourself who care about the numbers and the market analysis in a way that is helpful. Because I use it as an aid. So
Right.
I just wanted to shout that out. It is very, very helpful. And back to the beginning of the conversation when I said, do your research. It's like watch ZenForce, watch, Nostalgianomics or whoever and learn. And you're one of those people. So it's great to have you.
Yeah, I just need to be motivated to actually upload and then it might actually turn into something. But taking it day by day and the weekly live stream will be the medium of that right now until I can
Cool.
get better at it. But yeah, I may poke you on the side about editing questions.
Sounds good.
If there's nothing else, we can wrap there. Thank you to the remaining 8 people. I think we got up to like 12 or 15 at
Cool.
some point. So
Love it.
you're an entertaining guest.
Cool.
Shout out to Belly Bolt. Shout out to Pocket Pals Hub. And look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good.
And yeah, and
It was a
also
pleasure.
people, whoever's remaining here, look out for your upcoming live streams with Dallas, Fort Worth, greater vendor community.
That's right.
All right, I appreciate it. I'll talk to you
Thank you.
soon. Thanks. All right, peace out. Bye.